Sunday. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of True Story Live. Tonight's topic is part two, Come to the Table. For those of you that listened last week, we had in my opinion, an excellent conversation, but we kind of ran out of time. We went about 2.5 hours and we had to put a stop to it. And we said that we will continue again tonight. So depending on how things go, it might be a shorter broadcast this evening, but we definitely want to finish going over our questions. Really not a whole lot to cover. Of course, sometimes we take a question and it spurs on more conversation and dialogue, and that, of course, could happen again tonight. So that's what it is. We're happy to be here tonight, and we'll say hello to everyone in the chat. Looks like we have several people in there, and we're grateful you guys showed up tonight. So we'll get to you in just a moment. First, as usual, I'll say hello to the rest of the panel, and this time I'll start with my amazing wife, Jen. Jen, say hello to the peoples for us.
Hey, peoples. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. Good to be here.
You sound so cheerful.
I am. It's been a good weekend.
You are cheerful. It has been a good weekend. Well, thanks for being here. And we will also say hello to our producer and our friend from Australia, Glenn. Glenn, say hello to the peoples.
Hi. How's it going? Yeah. Daylight saving. I hate it.
Yeah. What was that? Oh, you had a baby in there or something.
Peanuts. It's the peanuts he's eating.
So obviously we know that your part of the world is a different season, which makes sense. So are you doing the spring? I'm assuming you're doing the spring forward daylight savings. Is that correct? Is
Correct.
That the way it works?
Yes, it was 10 a.m. for the show, and now it's 11 a.m.
Oh, gotcha.
And then later on, when you guys do it, it's going to be midday, which is a right pain in the backside.
So ours here in the States, at least in our area, it starts November 7th, and we actually fall back for fall, spring forward for spring. There you go. That's the way it works. So we'll get an extra hour. So if the time change, and I don't know why it does this, but it changes at 2 a.m. So if you stay up till 2 a.m., it actually becomes 1 a.m. again.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the spring, if it's 2 a.m., it goes to 3 a.m. So you lose an hour. Interesting.
It's time travel.
It is time travel. Go back in time. There you go. All right, Jen, say hello to the peoples in the chat for us, please. And we'll get going.
Hello. We got Tiptoe Palms in, Miss Annie. We got Janet. Great to see you, Janet. We have Debbie. Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. And I think that's it, other than you two gentlemen.
Well, that's okay. And we'll keep an eye on people. And as they come in, we'll try to say hello to everyone. But grateful to everyone that's here. Thank you so much. All right. So continuing from last week, we left off. The last thing we went over, what if we come to the table to share and we don't get the response we want? Where do we go from there? Wait a minute. No, sorry. I'm going ahead of myself. Let me go back. Sorry, guys. All right. So at the end of last week, we went over what is our responsibility? What is their responsibility? Should we bring it to the table right away while the feelings, situations, and thoughts are fresh? Or should we wait and let feelings simmer down? Why and why not? Now, did we talk a lot about that? Do you guys remember? Did we really?
No.
Okay, so that's where we're going. I
think we touched on it and then we had to close.
Yeah, I mistold. Glenn was asking me, and I mistold Glenn what slide to use. So my apologies for that, Glenn. Okay, so
yeah, I think we did the first slide. That's what I had switched off. So I'm thinking, if I just switch it off, and it will be, should we come to the table right away, etc. Did we deal with that?
I don't think so.
I don't think we did.
I don't think we did. Yeah, I think this is important to talk about because this is this is the thing, and there seems to be some disagreement on this, even between the members on the panel, and it's okay. Here's the beauty of it: the three of us can disagree on things and still have a relationship. Which I wish that's the way it worked in the world. I wish you could disagree on things and it'd be okay, and it actually strengthens the relationship, in my opinion, because if you disagree on things and you can discuss it and talk about it, and at the end of the day, you can say, hey, you know what? We don't agree on this point, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of anything. And it certainly doesn't have to be the end of the relationship, especially on topics like this. This is all theoretical, so to speak. I mean, these are real things, in my opinion. The idea of coming to the table, it's a real thing. You know, it exists in relationships. It can exist if it's something that is meaningful to you. It definitely can be something you take away from these discussions and use in your relationship. I believe it can be a tool. But each of us has our opinions. It doesn't necessarily mean our opinions are correct. But I sure love talking about it. And Glenn is a good person to talk to about things like that. And certainly Jen is. And this is one of those things. May not even be a disagreement. It may just be a different perspective. So let's jump into this. So I think we talked about what is our responsibility, what is their responsibility. But here's the topic: should we bring it to the table right away while the feeling/situation thoughts are fresh, or should we wait and let feelings simmer down? Why and why not? Jen, do you want to tackle this one first? Because I think this is something that you've thought a lot about.
Yeah, sure. So I've always okay. So the beginning of my life, it was not coming to the table at all.
Right. No
It
table.
was actually it was either stuffing feelings and disregarding how I felt or what my not having an opinion,
Right.
or oh, and I forgot what the other one was. It
No,
just flew
that's
out of
okay.
my head.
That's okay.
But and it's funny because talking to Glenn, one of the things I love about talking with Glenn and us being friends
Yeah.
is that he challenges some of the things I think,
Sure.
and some of the opinions that I have, and he asks questions that
Yeah.
really make me dig into why I believe what I believe and why I think the way I think and that kind of stuff.
Sure. Sure.
So with this particular particular topic, he had made a comment in our group chat when we were talking about this particular topic,
Hmm.
and it made a lot of sense, because my initial reaction is I don't want people to see that I'm angry or
Right.
upset or when
Right.
those feelings are just like Annie said, it's
Raw.
adrenaline and it's just
Sure.
really churning. I think there's a couple reasons. I'm afraid I'm going to say something I regret.
Hmm.
I grew up around an angry dad and then was
Hmm.
married to an incredibly rageful, first husband. So anger to me has always been this ugly thing and it's been scary. And I've always just almost made this subconscious mantra, not mantra, but this belief of I'm never going to be angry because it affected me so badly in the majority part chunk of my life. But when it comes to us talking as a group and even in the chat, we've had many shows about being authentic
Yeah.
and being genuine and being open. um there's something there and it's definitely piqued my interest. It's tweaked my brain. I'm like,
Hmm.
because on one hand I think, okay, if someone's a true friend and they want you to be your authentic self,
Yeah.
they'll be okay if you lash out in anger. Now, I know there's a line there.
Yeah.
Us being believers and the Bible saying, be angry but sin not.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about that. But so right now I'm kind of on the fence. I've always believed that like calming down and thinking about the feelings and what had happened and kind of mulling it over has I have believed has been beneficial,
Right.
but now I'm not so sure. I'm like, So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. Well, there's
What about
there's
you?
there's a lot to think about there.
Yeah.
Um, so just kind of playing off what you said, I think a lot of this whole coming to the table thing, it does depend on who you're coming to the table with and how that table is constructed. I think Annie made a good point that, and it was, I believe it was in Messenger. It wasn't here in the broadcast. Forgive me if I'm incorrect on that. but she was saying that she wanted to know up front what the and I'm paraphrasing her. She wanted to know up front what the makeup of the table is. Like she wanted to know what expectations to have going in. And for some people,
If anyone can hear me, I'm waiting for Crips. Here he comes. Crips and
All right.
two. I think.
All right. All right.
All right.
I'm going to leave the images off the screen. We're just going to go to chat, okay?
Okay.
I'm going. It should be going.
Okay. It says the audio stream's current bit rate is 0. Let me refresh.
If anyone can hear me, I'm waiting. Still no sound, black screen.
All right.
It should be running. Maybe I should.
Yes, they can hear us.
All
Debbie
right.
just
Oh,
says she
I'm
can hear
going to
us.
leave the
Yay!
images off
Thank
the
you,
screen. I'm
guys.
just going to go to chat. Okay.
Y'all are
I
rock
did all that
stars.
without any four-letter words.
You did.
We would forgive you.
I'm going.
If some people are in charge of whether you go to heaven or hell, they would say that helps. You're on the way. If they're going by you not swearing, then then that goes in the good column.
Oh, maybe.
All right, chat.
Yes, they can
Chat's
hear
good.
us.
Debbie
Oh.
just says, all right, thanks guys for
Yay.
hanging in
Thank
there.
you,
Sorry about that.
guys.
OBS
So-
is
Did all
finicky.
that without any.
So we had
four-letter
quite an
words.
interesting conversation in between time.
We
I
would
wish it
forgive
had
you.
all been recorded because it was
If some
fascinating.
people are in charge
So
of whether you
I made it clear as
Glenn
Glenn
say
was
that helps.
in part saying that it was my standard swearing would send him to hell or not. I made it very clear that I'm not
All right,
I'm not
chat.
in
Yes,
charge
chat's
of
good.
anyone.
All right, thanks guys.
Not
for
in
hanging
charge
in
of
there.
anyone's
Sorry about
eternal home.
OBS
So-
is
Did all
finicky.
that without any.
So we
Uh-oh.
had
Annie said
quite
we
an
have an echo.
interesting conversation in between does someone have their YouTube running
I
by
made it clear
chance?
Glenn say
was,
that helps.
in part
I don't know
saying
why there'd
that
be an echo.
it was my standard.
No, there shouldn't be an echo. I've got everything off the way it should be off.
I made it very
Uh-oh,
clear
they're
that
still
I'm
saying
not.
Let me
echo.
just-
That's
I'm
weird.
not in
Yes.
charge
Okay,
of
let me just
anyone.
hang on. Let me try this.
Thanks, guys.
How's that?
How is it now?
Annie said, I feel like I'm drunk.
Maybe you are drunk.
It's you, not us.
Yeah.
I have every possible echo turned off. I can't see why it
no.
would be echoing.
Crap.
Did you get rid of the other Google Meet? I'm assuming you did.
Oh, it's all gone.
Okay.
Everything's
I
oh
only
better.
have the-
Debbie says
Okay.
better.
Okay.
Sweet.
Okay.
Thanks,
Better.
guys.
Best. Good. Awesome. Okay. Okay.
Wouldn't be
so-
it wouldn't be a good show without some tech issues.
Right. Exactly. There's always someone trying to monkey with our tech stuff.
Bill
Okay.
Ted.
So
Yeah.
I was in the middle. I was in the middle of responding to this. So Jen had a really good response in this idea of whether we wait, do we let things simmer down? And I was making the point that that Annie was talking about that she wanted to have the expectations up front, and she said in the chat, yeah, she wants to know what the expectations are. And I don't think that's an outrageous thing. I think that when you're in a relationship with someone, it's good to know what the expectations are. Even better to not have expectations. This is something my mom and I talked a lot about when she was alive. We would have these conversations about expectations, and expectations are relationship killers. But if you know what the expectations are, then they can be managed. If you're in a relationship where you don't have to have expectations, if the expectations are unspoken, in other words, I think it's you can expect that the person is going to be loyal to you and not cheat on you and things like that. Of course, we do know that there are some relationships where both people agree to go outside the marriage. I'm not saying I'm making a moral stand on that, but I'm just stating that each relationship is different. But in each relationship, if the expectations are understood between the two parties, then that is beneficial. So the table to me is no different than that if each person knows what to expect. I was stating that Glenn, right before we cut off, I was stating that Glenn says that he doesn't have expectations at the table. He allows the other person to yell and scream and hit the table if they want. And that's my characterization of it, not his. But basically, they can be who they are at the table, and he's going to be who he is at the table. And that's great. That's a lofty goal. Not everyone's going to be like that. Other people are coming from abusive situations and they need certain assurances. And that's okay. To me, that's okay. It's you have to decide in every relationship that you're in. If you're coming to the table, I think there could easily be a conversation about, okay, when we're coming to the table, this is what the parameters are, and that's what Annie was sharing, and I kind of agree with that. So in this area of should we let feelings uh, settle down, it pretty much, to me, it depends on, again, the construct of the table. Are you able to come to the table with the person that you're in a relationship with when your feelings are on the high end? You know, when you're angry, when you're upset, is it okay with the other person? If it is okay with the other person, then by all means, why would you wait? Why would you not just come to the table as you are, sharing your feelings, whatever they might be, and know that the other person is safe, and that they're not going to hold those things against you? There may be other relationships where, again, if the other person has gone through abuse, they may not be able to tolerate being yelled at. They may not be able to tolerate you pounding the table, or in my case, slamming doors and cupboards. Now,
Yeah.
honestly, if that happened, if I was in a relationship with someone that did that, I'm not saying I would leave. I'm not saying I would end the relationship, but I would make it very clear. I would be open and authentic and honest with them and say, hey, I don't really respond to that type of behavior. It doesn't really put me into a place where I want to hear what you have to say. And it's my own stuff. It's definitely my own stuff, but I'm aware of it. So sharing that with the person at the table would be a good idea. So for me, because okay, so let me use my relationship with Jen real quick. So I know that she has come from abusive situations, both with family in the past and with her 14-year marriage to an abusive person. Okay, so I'm going to have a little different expectations of myself when coming to the table with her. In other words, if I am in a place where I feel like I cannot control my anger, if I'm ever that angry, which has never happened, but if I were ever that angry with Jen and I needed to come to the table, I probably would choose to wait and let my feelings simmer down before coming to the table. That would be my personal choice. And it's out of love and respect for the person that I'm coming to the table with, which in this case would be Jen, because I don't want to muddy the things that I'm saying by the feelings that I'm expressing, whether it be anger or frustration, or whatever the case may be. Now, I really think down the road, when she's healed more and recovered more from the abuse that she suffered for so long, she may be able to handle me being angry. She may not have as much of an issue with that as I perceive that she might now. But the truth is, I've never felt those feelings. I've never been that angry with Jen. Um, we don't even have fights, at least thus far. We call them bumps, minor disagreements that we have to work through. So I don't really know how to deal with this because it hasn't happened yet. Now with my mother, I know I'm taking a long time to answer this, guys, but I think it's important. So when my mother was alive, she was a safe person for me in at least this way, that if I was angry with her, I could be angry with her. I could quote unquote come to the table and say, I'm really pissed off, Mom. What you said to me was hurtful and I didn't like it. And that's just the way that it is. And she might get angry back or she might get triggered. But I knew with her that wasn't the end of anything. So I could come to the table like that. And part of it was because we've known each other our whole life. And the other part was that I uh, talked to her whatever way I wanted to. And I'm not necessarily saying that's a good thing. In fact, sometimes she would complain about that. She said, both of my children say whatever they feel to me. Now, I'm not sure whether she was saying that in a negative way or a positive way. I should have asked her when I had the chance. I should have said, now, is that a bad thing to you or is that a good thing? Do you prefer that you know your children are going to be open and upfront with you, even with their feelings, and they're going to express themselves in whatever way they want? Or do you prefer that they tone their feelings down or tamp their feelings down, or as this question states, let things cool off or simmer down? I think it's an interesting question, and I'm not saying I have the answer for every person. I think each person needs to come to those conclusions on their own. Okay, so that's the end of my
Awesome.
answer, my long answer. What do you think, Glenn? Should we bring it to the table right away while the feelings slash situation thoughts are fresh, or should we wait and let feelings simmer down? Why and why not?
Just going to go back a fraction
Sure.
to the word anger that you used. For myself, I haven't been angry for like well over 20 years. So I don't bring anger to the table. And I'm just trying to reflect what did make me angry. You know what did?
What?
Was when I couldn't even get to the table. When someone would say, I refuse to discuss this.
Oh,
That would make me angry.
Wait, say that one more time.
If someone says, like in a relationship, with a serious relationship, I refuse to discuss this.
right. There are some people like that.
And that really that's headbanging for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you have you have no relationship, honestly, if you can't come to the table. But you can imagine the frustration that it brings when someone continually says, well, I'm not going to discuss this. I don't want to.
I don't.
Where does that leave you? It leaves you like in a vacuum.
Yeah, I don't have to imagine
disconnected.
it. I don't have to imagine it. So I don't know that you're talking about my mother.
No, not at all. I'm talking about things before her.
Okay, but my mother had this rule that she made for herself that she would not read angry emails. If an email came through where feelings were being expressed and they weren't calm, and in her mind, in her perception, if they weren't calm, if they were expressing any displeasure in something that she did, or expressing anger in any way, she would say that she's not going to read it. She would refuse to read the email. Now, I chose to write my feelings down because in person, if I would have come to her while I was angry, I may not be able to express things in the proper way, the way that I would like to get my feelings out. So this was maddening to me. I would say, "Hey, I didn't get a response to your email." She says, "Yeah, I didn't read it." I said, wait, what do you mean you didn't read it? She said, "Yeah, I could see from the tone right away that you were angry, and I'm not going to read it."
Oh no.
So, I mean, I felt dismissed. Is exactly what Glenn's talking about. I felt like this was a person that was making a rule. This is what I talk about: boundaries with barbed wire, boundaries with spikes on the top of the wall, so to speak. It's something that she was deciding for herself to protect herself, but the people that love her, that are trying to have a relationship with her, are being pricked by the barbed wire on her boundaries. Now, that concept may seem ridiculous to some people, but to me, that's how I look at it. That's a perfect example of what that is to me. So, in other words, a person can decide anything they want. It doesn't mean that the person they're in a relationship with is going to go, "Oh, okay, I get it. Oh, that's cool. No problem." Yeah, you're not going to read my email that I put 20, 30 minutes into to express my feelings because I didn't want to yell at you. I wanted to put all my feelings down and express them. And it may not even be how I feel later. It just is getting it out there. And I think there's value to that. But she didn't see any value in that. So she would refuse to do it. So then I would have to, after the feelings had died down, if I wanted to talk to my mother about something, I had to do it in person. And that was her rule. And so that's kind of a one-sided relationship in that way, in my opinion. Anyway, so
I was gonna. Oh, good.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I just was gonna say it's interesting. I didn't ever realize this, but my mom, not that she's the same as your mom, but
Right.
I grew up just being so afraid of confrontation and sharing that I would do it through letters. Like I've got a box full of stuff from when I was like really young through
Yeah.
high school where I had these letters that my mom kept that I
Yeah.
would write to them when I was mad
Yeah.
or upset. And I should ask her why. And I'm curious now. I'm like, huh. But she's told me recently in the last 3 years that, she would prefer to talk in person and not
Right.
have to read an email. And I've wondered about that. And maybe it's just because there's a lot of things that can be misconstrued through the written word. But
Okay.
I'm with you. Because of the adrenaline, because of my own fear of confrontation, how it'll be taken, and
Right.
and even from having all that adrenaline and not sure if I'm going to get my feelings across, writing something out for me was more therapeutic because I could kind of sift through my thoughts and my feelings as I did it, and it just
Uh-huh.
was very helpful for me.
Yeah.
But my mom, she never said I couldn't. She just said
Right.
that she would prefer,
That's
which
different.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it has stretched me because I've had some opportunities, in the last few years of
Right.
talking with her and my dad in person about things, and it was very uncomfortable
Yeah.
for me to learn how to do that, and I'm still learning, but
Yeah.
it's been good. But yeah, I can relate to part of your sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Annie asked a good question in the chat. She says, Jason, did you have to be the one to work harder, do more in order to be able to communicate with her? That is a great question, Annie. And yes, in my opinion, yes. And I'll just say briefly that for a long time, I didn't want to have a relationship with my family. In fact, I moved away several times, but because of my own codependency and my need to prove to my family that I'm not the black sheep that they painted me to be, for years I kept coming back. And I didn't come back because of my mother. I came back because of my dad, because I was still trying to prove to him that I was a good son and I was a helpful son and I was a hard worker. So it would always be, he would say, "Oh, I really could use some help." He'd never ask me to come home, but he knew me. He knew that if he said he needed help, just arbitrarily in the background, if he said, "Oh, I really could use some help," he knew that I would drop what I was doing and move back to the area and work for him. And I did it over and over and over
Hmm.
again. And as I look back at it now, of course I realize what it is. Of course I do. But hindsight is always 2020, as we know. At the time, I thought I'm being a good son. Finally, when I do this, when I give up my life in a completely different state, when things are going very, very well, because here's the truth. When I moved away from my family, I succeeded. I didn't have the quote unquote false safety net of my family helping me, which is a joke, helping me. I succeeded on my own. And the last time I did it, I lived in Florida. I was working two jobs. I worked for a golf course and I worked for a convenience store. And I worked mainly during the early morning at the golf course. And I would go home and take a shower and get cleaned up. And then I would go work the afternoon shift into the evening at the convenience store. And then sometimes on the weekends, I'd have to turn around and go back to the convenience store and open up in the morning at 5 a.m. And I did this for 2 years. And I had a nice car and I had a nice apartment and I was physically healthy, emotionally healthy. And I got that call from my dad saying that he really could use some help. And I dropped everything, left my life in Florida, and moved back to where my parents lived to move right back into a toxic situation that I had done several times before. So, what was my point? My point was an answer to Annie's question. Did I have to work harder? With my mother, yes. Definitely with my father. If there was any work to be done in the relationship, it was me doing it. It wasn't him. He's very detached in that way. Now, I'm with my father. I'm at the point where I do have a relationship with him, but my expectations are extremely low. I know that we'll talk occasionally, and on birthdays, I'll take him to Waffle House or Father's Day because they fall in the same month. Usually, I combine the two, so I'm not having to do it twice. Um, I know that he's not going to ask anything about me. He's not going to ask me questions about my life, my marriage, how I'm doing. And as long as I know that, I can have a surface relationship with my dad. Now, Do I long for something more? Sure. I think that every son, it's somewhere deep inside them, no matter what a jerk their dad is or how abusive the situation is. I'm sure we all have a desire to have a relationship with our parents. It's just ingrained in us, I think. It's just my opinion. So I have that longing, but it's not ever going to be fulfilled unless he changes. But in reference to my mother, the last 7 years of her life, she did try harder. Okay. I don't know what it was that changed for her. I know she was going to Al Anon, and I know that was extremely healing for her own abuse and her mother being an alcoholic and things like that. I know that was helpful to her. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. I wish I would have asked her, hey, I see a change. What happened? But it
Yeah.
was easier. I'm not saying it was totally easy. I'm just saying it was easier. And I'm so grateful for that. I didn't know she was gonna die. So I can move forward in my life knowing that for the past 7 years before she died, that her and I had a better relationship than we ever had before, and we both worked. She put some work in, and I could see it. I could see that she was trying, and that made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I'll make one more point on the proving because that's what for me spurred this whole thing on in the first place. And I've mentioned this before. Jen and Glenn both pointed this proving thing out to me. They could see it, and I was in the middle of it and couldn't see it as clearly. They pointed it out to me 2 years ago around November, so almost 2 years to the day, almost. And I'm like, oh my gosh! And it was like getting hit with a ton of bricks. And I saw it. I saw it. Really, really saw it for the first time. And ever since that moment, I have little by little, as much as I can, tried to break free of whatever part of that remains. Not saying I've arrived. I'm fully aware of it, fully aware that I do it, and that has made a huge difference. Great question, Annie. And I appreciate you guys when you ask questions. I'm more than happy to answer. I wear my heart on my sleeve on these shows. I'm happy to talk about whatever, talk about my relationships. And, I get flack sometimes in the past on Facebook because I would put posts on there and just tell people what I was feeling. And a lot of people aren't like that. And I get that, but I don't have any problem sharing. I know that some people are not safe people, but to me, Facebook, it's almost not real to me in some way. It's just like social media is it's almost not real to me. Uh, Maybe incorrect. That's the way I feel about it. Anyway, so there it is. All right.
Can I
So
now keep going, Crips?
please, yeah. Sorry,
Okay,
I
no,
apologize.
that's all good because I was just going to say before I answer the question that was asked. Uh, yeah, I had that experience with your mum. This is I don't like what you said, and I'm not going to read it.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and my goodness, when I think back, is this what's the word? Person who knows absolutely nothing meets a relationship therapist and like, oh yeah, do you feel
Right.
do you feel inferior or what?
Yeah.
Wait, I don't get it.
Well,
What,
here am I coming from a place like I know nothing, and I
Right.
think she knows. I thought, well, this woman, so she's a relationship therapist. She
Yeah.
must know like everything.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to shake my head and think, why is she cutting me off? But here's the crazy part. Here's the counterintuitive bit. Like it'd all calm down, and then she'd say, I want you to fight with me, so I can practice fighting. What? On one hand, you're not going to read my email, and then you want me to practice fighting. What? If that doesn't do your head in, I don't know what does.
I don't either. I don't
I'm
either.
confused.
So I had to learn to deal with that BS part of her, and I
Yeah.
think I was getting quite successful, to be honest. I just say, well, you can basically, if you don't want to read it, well, just shove it,
Yeah.
throw it in the waste paper bin. I don't
Yeah.
care. I'm not
Yeah.
relying on you to read my emails.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter to me. The
Right.
fact is, what's more important is I wrote what I wanted to write,
Oh.
or I wanted to say what I wanted to say. How you react or respond to it is out of my hands.
Right. True. That's true.
That's very
So,
true.
so okay, the next bit. Well, I think from experience, I just want to bring it to the table straight away. I don't have the energy for holding on to that stuff and second guessing it.
Mhm.
I think it's just the path of least resistance.
Mhm.
It's so easy then. But the other thing is, you don't bring anger. And I never would bring anger even if I felt angry to the table, because I don't think that does anything. You can be annoyed and you can be pissed off.
Right.
It's like you don't bring malice or the desire to hurt someone when you come to the table. You don't bring the thought that I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah.
I think there's some things you've got to leave out. So
Sure.
you come free to be open, but
Right.
receptive at the same time. And I think that's a real key to it.
I like
Yeah.
that. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Glenn.
Thanks.
Before we move forward, I'll just say that, Glenn, I do know, at least she said toward the end there, she had told me that she got an email from you or a letter or something. I'm not sure which. It's been a while. But she told me, she asked me, should I read it? I said, why are you asking me? I mean, do you want to read it? I mean, you should read it if you want to read it. I don't know. I mean, you tell me what you want to do. And she said, oh, no, I'm not going to read it. Now, I never believed her when she said she didn't read it. And here's why: I'm a person that wants to read things. Like I got in trouble a lot as a kid because she would leave her stuff lying around, and I would look at it. If she leaves it open on the counter, she leaves her date book open on the counter, I'm going to glance at it. And part of the reason for me was because I could see if there was any secret doctor's appointment scheduled for me or anything else, because they were always springing stuff on me. Like, I'll just tell a quick story. So when I was probably in third grade, I was at school and my mom came to pick me up from the school, and she said, do you want to get some ice cream?" And I was like, "Yeah, ice cream. Yeah, let's go get some ice cream. Awesome. My mom's coming to school and picking me up, and we're going to get some ice cream." And then we're driving, and we passed a couple ice cream places, Baskin Robbins stuff. I said, "Mom, there's Baskin Robbins." "Okay, well, we're gonna get ice cream." And then I'm in the part of town where the doctor's office is, and I'm starting to see the hospitals and the doctor's offices in that area of town, which I had recognized because I had been there before. And sure enough, my mother was taking me to a doctor's appointment. Didn't tell me about it ahead of time. And here's the reason why she didn't tell me. I was afraid of doctors because I associated a doctor's appointment with pain, getting a shot, having my ears cleaned out with a metal tipped scraper,
Oh, jeez.
all kinds of stuff.
Oh, I thought that was with bobby pins.
My mother did use a bobby pin to clean my quote unquote hardened earwax out of my ears, which is inappropriate. It's not the proper tool to use for that, but that's what she did. But a doctor will use not a bobby pin, but a large tool. It's
Yeah, I've
got like
seen
a hook
those.
on the end, and they stick it
Mhm.
in your ear and they scrape the earwax out of your ear. Gross, and painful. Anytime you stick something metal in your ear, it doesn't feel good. So anyway, so I'm of course objecting to the fact that she led me under false pretenses out of the school to supposedly get ice cream when here we are going to the doctor. Of course,
Stranger danger.
yeah, yeah. Then she's saying, "Well, I'm going to take you to get the ice cream, but we have to go to the doctor first. So your reward for going to the doctor and not pitching a fit is to get ice cream." Well, she should have led with that. I mean, even if I react to it, that's lying to your child, and it doesn't set up a healthy relationship. I, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. So, anyway, there that is. Why did I tell that story?
I was trying to remember. All's what
I
ever
think,
trails of Jason.
I think more often than not, when I talk about my mother, it seems like it's all bad. And I just want to make it clear, she was a brilliant woman, and she was loved by people that weren't her children, and they looked up to her, and she helped people. She really honestly helped people, as you've heard me talk about her memorial, and they lined up to get a chance to tell people the difference that Linda made in their lives. So she was not at all just the bad things, the bad stories that I tell sometimes about her. I loved her, and she made a huge impact in my life, an impact that affects my relationships. It affects my perception of myself, and certainly the spiritual aspects that she passed along to me, and her desire to make sure that I read the Bible and that I went to a private Christian school and that we went to church and children's church and all of that. Her impact on my life was not at all bad. I think we talk about the bad things sometimes because these are things we can learn lessons from, the way our
Yeah.
parents raised us and the kind of relationships that we had. And I feel because of my belief system, I believe that I'll see her again, and I know that she's fine now, detached. She doesn't have her flesh with her anymore, and she's just spirit, and that's all the good stuff that is in a person in my belief system. Um, so I don't think she'd be mad at me that I'm using stories from the past to hopefully help someone and have someone have a better understanding of things that I've gone through, so that when I talk about all these things on the show, people have an idea of, hey, I've been through this,
Yeah. Or even to relate to,
to
like
relate.
Annie's doing.
Hmm.
She can relate to part of your story.
Exactly. Okay, so moving forward, so and guys, this idea of whether you let feelings simmer down, it's totally up to you. That's the point. If I could leave any point before moving on, that would be it. That you have to decide in your relationships on the construct of the table, and you have to decide what the expectations are with the person that you're in a relationship with.
Yeah.
It comes down to the two of you, or if it's a family, then you come to the table as a family, and the parameters are clear.
Yeah.
I wish that had happened for me growing up. I wish that
Same
I
here.
felt safe coming to the table with my family, and I oftentimes didn't, for obvious reasons, which I've shared many stories. So it was
Yeah.
not a safe place. So there that is. All right. The next up is if we look at the concept of our feelings being our, capital letters, responsibility. How do you come to the table with that in mind? What happens if you don't? Could two people have different reasons for coming to the table? Okay, so I'll read that again. If we look at the concept of our feelings being our responsibility, how do you come to the table with that in mind? What happens if you don't? Could two people have different reasons for coming to the table? And I'll answer first.
Oh man.
Oh, do you want? No, go ahead. You want to answer?
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
want to pop it on you. Or if you're ready to
Oh
answer,
no,
go
no.
ahead.
I'm good. The first part, I think it's great for us to recognize that our feelings are ours,
Mhm.
because I do know that for the majority of my life, I wanted people to react in a certain way to my feelings in order to make me feel better. And maybe part of the reason that I didn't I mean, it wasn't safe for a lot of reasons, and it wasn't taught to come to the table and talk about feelings either. So that made it more scary.
Mhm.
Um, but I know that I experienced times where I brought stuff to the table and someone didn't take the responsibility to make me feel better. And then I was left like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what the I still feel bad, you know?
Yeah.
How do you come to the table with that in mind? So, it is a different concept because, you hear people say all the time, Jason made me angry or
Yeah.
so and so made me angry. And um, it is, it's interesting how it can kind of like program you
Sure.
into thinking that your feelings are someone else's responsibility, instead of owning it and even
Right.
recognizing and understanding one of the reasons I'm reacting the way I'm reacting is because of my stuff,
Right.
which I think we all have. We all have our baggage, and the baggage ends up becoming a lens in how we see other people's words and their
Wow.
actions, and
Yeah.
and then we're reacting off of that. Now, sometimes people can be blatantly jerks, and you're
Sure.
like, wow, okay, this has nothing to do with me. You're just an ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the last question, I know I wrote this question, but I hear Glenn in my head, duh. Could two people have different
Zing.
reasons for coming to the table? I'm like, duh. Of course they could. And I think it's unless you're talking to yourself, then yeah,
Right.
it's a given.
Right.
So those are my answers.
That's great. Yeah, our feelings are our responsibility and no one else's. That's the truth. And while you were talking, Jen, I was thinking about abusive people that often say, like, they'll hit their spouse and they'll say, "Look what you made me do."
Oh
Well, what?
yeah. Do you not have control over your bodily functions?
Yeah. So the other person made you physically strike them. Really, really. So that's a perfect example of where their feelings are their own. Nobody makes you respond. Yes, someone might have done something to you that triggers you, and you have a reaction. Okay, are they responsible for what they did to you? Yes. Are you responsible for the feeling that incites in you? Yes, you're responsible. There may
That's
be
a
a
great point.
there may be a reason. Thank you, Abe. There may be a reason why you feel the way you do. In other words, they gave you a reason to feel that way, but the way you feel is your responsibility. So, when coming to the table, knowing that uh, is helpful. Knowing that your feelings are your responsibility. If you can get that in your head and get that in your heart and realize that whether table or no table, it's going to be easier for you to live in this world
Yeah.
knowing that you're responsible for how you feel
Yeah.
yourself. No one else is responsible for how you feel.
And
And
yeah, go ahead.
oh, one more thing. Also, that people can't make you feel anything. You might, like I said, you might feel something because of what someone did to you. That's natural. That happens.
Yeah.
But how you deal with what someone else did to you, how your feelings, how you deal with the way you feel about something, that is your responsibility. What are you going to say, Jen?
I just was gonna say, great response. That just tweaked some things in my head. But I had a counselor once who I saw when I was with my ex and after, and one of the first sessions that I had with him, I was sharing kind of what was going on, and my main reason to go to counseling was to gain tools to survive,
Hmm.
because I didn't know what the heck was going on, and
Right.
I just was like, I need to figure out how to deal.
Right.
Um, and so one of the things that came out of my mouth was, I make him angry. And
Yeah.
he
I
looked at me
make him angry.
and he looked at me and he goes, "What made you think you had that much power?"
Whoa. Yeah.
And I sat there with my mouth open, like, what? Like, it blew my mind. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. And he kind of explained to me where he was coming from. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, okay. It's just a totally new concept. I think it goes both ways, where if we can take responsibility for someone else's feelings,
Yeah.
but then vice versa, we want them to take responsibility of ours. It's
Yeah.
very sticky.
Yeah. It is sticky. And I'm not saying it's easy. Look, we're programmed to take on other people's feelings all the time. I mean, I am an empathetic person. And I remember when my mother, when I was young, I'm not going to say anything bad about her this time. I'm just sharing something that she shared with me. She would tell me when I was a kid, she would be upset about something, and I would come and try to comfort her. And I would say, "Mommy, don't cry." Now, I think a lot of kids do that. I hope a lot of kids are empathetic and they see their mom crying and they want to make things better. I think that's a natural part of being a child and being innocent in that way and loving your mom and not wanting her to cry. I think that it's not just me. Um, but she would express her feelings. Now, there are other mothers and fathers that want their kids to be responsible for their feelings. I mean, I'm not making this up. This is something that happens. This is a manipulation tool and control from a narcissistic person that wants to trap their kids in this place of making them responsible for how they feel. It's the same concept of look what you made me do.
Hmm.
Look how you made me feel. You did this, this, and this, and now I'm angry, and now I'm slamming cupboards and doors.
Yeah.
That's pervasive in our society, in my opinion. So I'm saying that it's not easy. It depends on how you've been programmed in your family of origin and what kind of relationships you have, as whether those people are trying to make you feel responsible for their feelings. It's difficult, but you can break out of it. You can get to the point where you realize that you're not responsible for anyone else's feelings. You're only responsible for your own. They're your feelings. Their feelings are their feelings. And the two don't meet. Even if you're in a relationship with that person, you're still not responsible for how they feel. You're not.
Yeah. It's
Ah,
great to know that. So then when you see someone coming or you're talking with someone and they're shoving that onto you, you can say, "No, that's not
that's
mine."
not mine. I'm not taking it. Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
have to accept it just because they're shoving it on you. It doesn't mean yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to take it.
You could ask to clarify and say, "Hey, are you putting that on me? Because
Yeah. Ugh.
is that what I'm getting here?"
Yeah, yeah. Are you guilt and shaming me? I was like, no. The other part of this question, could two people have different reasons for coming to the table? And I would mimic Glenn. Duh. Yeah, yeah, of course. Of course, two people can have different reasons for coming to the table. But again, if you fall in line with what Annie's saying, you have the expectations laid out ahead of time.
Yeah.
So if you have two different reasons for coming to the table, you would state that. I mean, it wouldn't take you long to find out that there's two
Yeah.
different reasons. So of
I
course,
think I think when I wrote this question, I was thinking of some people do come to the table to have someone fix how they're feeling, and someone else may
oh
be coming to the table to, like what Annie wrote in the chat. It's like I'm owning my stuff, but I still want to talk about what happened. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, cool. All right, Glenn, what about you? If we look at the concept of our feelings being our responsibility, how do you come to the table with that in mind? What happens if you don't? And could two people have different reasons for coming to the table? Duh.
Yeah, duh.
Yeah, duh.
There it is.
I think one of the reasons that the table can work wonderfully well is if one person says, I want to come to the table, and the other person has to be open and willing to come, even if when they get to the table, the person brings up something that really seems irrelevant to them. So I think you've got to be willing to just get there and hear what the other person has to say, because if they want to go there, well, it's obviously important to them, even if it's
Yeah,
not important to you. So I'm
right.
trying to
It's a
answer
great
this
point.
question in a sort of roundabout way.
Okay.
So, because we really can't second guess what someone else is feeling. And like, if Sandra wants to tell me that I've stuffed dinner up and I burnt it and she didn't like it, well, how am
Right.
I supposed to know that unless she brings it to the table and I'm prepared to hear what she's got to say, even though
Right.
I don't really care if I burnt dinner because, you know. So I think that interchanges, or that part of it is really critical. So obviously, two people have different reasons. Now, what was the other part of the question, Cripps? Look at the concept feeling. How do we come to the table with that in mind? How do we? Well, you just come. You just come openly. I mean, I don't think this is rocket science. Here I am. I'm available. If I've got something to bring up, I'll bring it up. If you have
Yeah.
something to bring it up, you bring it up. And we work it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. For a
So
lot of people, it's not that cut and dry, though,
that's
Well,
true.
unfortunately.
well, the question is, why isn't it cut and dried?
That's a
What?
great
Why?
question. Oh, you want me to answer?
Oh, please.
I think honestly, I don't think communicating and bringing things to the table is really taught to a lot of people.
No.
And I think within family units, um, people have baggage, and your parents have baggage from when they were kids and within their own families, and then it might have gotten incrementally better,
Yeah.
with the next generation with their kids, but there's still issues when it comes to people learning this for themselves as adults and then passing it on to their kids, and having it be a functioning system within the family, so that when those kids grow up and move into relationships in their teens and adult years, they just don't have the tools,
Yeah.
you know and I can only use me as a reference, and maybe Jason from the stuff he shared, but this whole concept is just like, it makes sense, and I've heard it before. I mean, it's communicating,
Yeah.
but I just, because of many reasons, I just avoided the table.
Right.
It wasn't a safe place,
No.
and for many reasons. So,
Yeah.
but I do agree, when people learn the concept of coming to the table, and the healthy kind of like rules, I guess you could say, to apply when you're at the table, whether the other person applies the healthy tools as well. It is simple. It does make it simple, where it's clear cut and dry, but people have to learn to get there.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt.
So, Jen, don't you think that this all comes back to one basic tenet is that people are so concerned with how other people are going to react, they're not going to tell the truth.
Right.
Yeah, I would
And
agree.
then it causes them immeasurable stress and anxiety
Whew,
until
yes.
they melt into a puddle on the ground and feel like crap when
Yeah.
they could have had this all over and done with in a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll give a quick example. My dad and I ran into some issues after this past Christmas or Thanksgiving. There was a handful of things that kind of happened in succession, and I didn't bring it to the table with him right away. I just kind of tucked it away and kept getting more and more angry. And literally, maybe like a month or two after the original infraction happened, when we went to Thanksgiving and visited, I think it was Thanksgiving, babe.
Yeah.
I was a mess. I was so twisted up inside. So when we talk about this idea of coming to the table, um, because when I finally did bring it to the table, and it was the four of us, my mom and dad and Jason and I talking on the phone, I literally, you guys, I had 2 pages of stuff to talk about,
Yeah.
and I was pissed. And
Yeah.
and the thing of it is my both of my parents have been very, very good for a while now with letting me share and
Mhm.
now and owning their stuff, owning their part, you know what I mean, and just us communicating. And you're right, Glenn, it's just wasted energy, wasted time. I can look at it now and say, okay, the whole record of wrongs is just a mess. When you can bring up something to someone who's hurt your feelings right away
Yeah.
and bring it to the table and have a conversation, it's so much better.
Mhm.
If I see those two options, I'm like, it's obvious to me which one's the better option,
Right.
for sure.
Sure.
But yeah.
Fantastic. Well, that was good, both of you, and that leads us into our last paragraph, really, of questions. Then I have a couple things to read for you guys, and we might have a little conversation about that, and then we'll call it a night. So probably won't go as long as we normally do, guys, as we said at the beginning. So the last little bit to go over: what if we come to the table to share and we don't get the response we want? Where do we go from there if we don't get the response or it's not what we were wanting? Why is bringing it to the table a good idea, and how does it benefit relationships? So we'll start with the first one. What if we come to the table to share and we don't get the response we want? What do you think, Jen?
I think we need to look at why we were needing a specific response.
Oh, okay.
Because and this is the thing that I kind of like I'm realizing of
Right.
late, that
Sure.
I teeter totter.
Right.
Especially with people that I really care about. I think when it's people outside of my inner circle, it's not as big of a deal.
Right.
But that whole idea of, hold on, I lost it. Like when I advocate for myself and share my feelings, that should be it. Um, or that could be it. It could be either one of those. Instead of it being dependent on the other person understanding or the other
Right.
person apologizing or whatever.
Wow.
The very
Wow.
fact that I was feeling something and I spoke up for
Wow.
myself, because this is something that my entire life I haven't really done.
Right.
So it is scary, but
Yeah.
it's such an awesome thing to get to a place where you can speak up for yourself and that be awesome and celebrate it, whether you get
Mhm.
an apology or not, or whether you get the response you wanted to get or not.
Right.
Like, so that's just an awesome thing. Am I doing all of these questions that you
No, we'll just
oh, okay, we'll do each one.
we'll do each one. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So that was good, Jen. Thank you. So um, I can't really add much to what Jen said. I completely agree. When you get to the point where you realize that you cannot go to the table expecting the person to respond the way that you would like them to, are there ways to respond to someone that are should be expected? Sure, I think sometimes, but I don't know any relationship where the person ever responds exactly the way that you expect them to. I just can't. Now, I'm a little spoiled with Jen because I feel like I know her pretty well already, and I'm going to continue to get to know her more and more each day, and that's the beauty of a relationship. But I kind of know how she's going to respond. So there's not really a place in me that's like, oh, I hope she does this, or I hope she does that, or says this. Um, I'm not ever disappointed by her response. She's a delightful person, and she has a wonderful heart.
Mm.
And coming to the table with her is a pleasure. I'm not anxious. I'm not like wondering, oh, I'm not afraid. And that's not. It's not like that with everyone. In the past, Glenn says 10 minutes, so um, we may have to do one more to finish, but we'll see. So for me, coming to the table, I try not to expect a certain response because I've learned that you're not going to get it. Sometimes you're pleasantly surprised. You come to the
Yeah.
table and the other person does respond in a way that's helpful and nurturing. Other times it's not, but you expect that. Again, my dad, for example, I just know what to expect from him. I know what not to expect from him.
Yeah.
And that's because I've grown and changed. It's because I've learned, not because he has. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
I was going to say real quick, I just had a serious breakthrough with my family with this particular thing because my problem was my entire life. I have been waiting for my family to respond to my feelings the way
yeah,
I would respond to theirs.
yeah,
And it was never happening. Well, I don't want to say never.
right,
That's a quantifier. It
yeah,
wasn't happening a lot. There were more times where the way they responded, I felt slapped. I
yeah,
just um and it would devastate me. So
sure,
now it's like I've gotten to a place where I know they love me. It's not, because I think it was connected to that. It was like if they don't respond to me the way I would respond to them, then that means they don't love me, which is horrible. And
yeah,
that's such a bad place to be because I'm not allowing them to be them with all their baggage and all their stuff. I'm trying to shove them in this cookie cutter mold.
right,
But since I've let go of that expectation and I'm just allowing them to be whoever they are and respond however they want to respond, I've actually felt more love from them, which is
right,
interesting. And just freedom and
yeah,
peace.
that's
So
great, great. Okay, so go ahead and answer the second part of this. Where do we go from there if we don't get the response or it's not what we're wanting?
were you asking Glenn?
I'm
Because
asking
did you?
you.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to ask him
Um,
both parts too because they tie together. So I mean, I understand what you're saying. You're saying that you shouldn't expect someone to respond a certain way. That's what we're both saying. That and
yeah.
you started it, but
Yeah, okay. So just wrap it up, like
yeah,
finish it.
yeah,
So if I don't get the response I want, I think if I'm just focused on the very fact that I said my part
yeah.
and I shared
Okay,
my feelings, that
great.
that I can have peace in that, and just letting them be who they are and respond the way they respond.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jen. All right, Glenn. What if we come to the table to share and we don't get the response we want? And the second part of that, where do we go from there if we don't get the response or it's not what we're wanting?
Yeah, the two questions are pretty joined up, I think.
Yep.
The only response I want is the truth, because if I don't get that, well, where do you go from there?
Right.
Like nowhere. That
Right.
closes the door effectively, does it not?
Yeah.
It's dead at that point.
Yeah.
Only when each person puts the truth out there can
Uh-huh.
we move forward.
Sure. Okay.
So
That's
that's it.
great.
Yeah, thanks.
I wonder if
You,
that's if you're not if you're coming to the table and you're not sharing your truth, would you consider that being lying?
yeah. If it's not the
Um,
truth, it's a lie. Yeah.
What do you think, Glenn?
I don't know that I'm not sure that it's as clear. I think it's more complex than that.
Yeah, not as cut and dry.
Because I'd want to ask the question, why aren't you bringing the truth to the table?
Right.
Which I
What's
think could be
preventing
for
you?
many and varied reasons.
Yeah,
Usually because they're scared
yeah,
Yeah.
that, like I said before, how is the other person going to respond? But it just doesn't do any favors for the situation or the relationship.
Right.
yeah.
Because
One
I
of
think
yeah,
I think Tiptoe Annie said something. said, like, that's part of a discussion point that sometimes people say stuff and they're not, you can feel they're not really saying what they think
Right.
intuitively. And that, to my mind, is pretty disconcerting.
Yeah.
So then you've got to go back and say, well, hey, if you got to, do you want to say something else? Have you got something else to add here? And
Yeah.
sometimes people just aren't. It. I think it's uncomfortable
Mhm.
in many respects to lay it out there. I acknowledge that. Particularly
Okay.
as Jen said, we're conditioned to do the
Yeah, we
opposite.
are. We are.
So it's difficult. It takes practice.
It does. I agree with you, and I agree that it may not be so cut and dry. But Annie said in the chat, "No, it's a lie" in all caps. So she kind of agrees with what I'm saying.
I didn't say
Um,
it's not a lie. I said I'd like to investigate more.
well,
Why?
sure.
Why? I mean, that sounds like me saying it. It's a lie, straight down the
Mhm.
line.
Yeah, it is though.
Yeah.
Maybe, and
They're not
I
being
hear,
honest.
I hear that thing. If it's not the whole truth, it's you know,
Yeah, you
uh,
can't have it both ways. Either you're
Or,
being
or,
authentic
or,
and intentional, and
or,
you're
or
laying it all out there, or
mm,
you're not.
no, I don't think it's okay. Let me tell you why I don't think it's necessarily a lie. If you only put half of the story on the table and that's the truth, it doesn't mean you're telling a lie. It just means you haven't disclosed everything that should be disclosed.
Hmm.
And I think there's quite a difference.
Well, they call that a lie of omission. Omission. You're
Mm.
omitting information.
Oh, there's another. That's a whole new topic, isn't
let's go.
it? uh, yeah, no, I'd have to think more on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, 4 minutes. Thanks.
4 minutes. Okay, thank you. All right. So the next one is why is this? These are two good ones, and they're combined. Why is bringing it to the table a good idea, and how does it benefit relationships? Why is bringing it to the table a good idea, and how does it benefit relationships? And I'll go first. Bringing it to the table is a good idea, I think, because if it is a safe place, if the table is a safe place and both people know that they can sit down and they can work things out and they sit at the table, as Glenn suggested 3 years ago or however long ago it was, that you stay there till you work it out and nobody gets up. And then when you get up, it's done. It's done and over, and you can move forward. I think that's fantastic. I really do. And that's the way it is for me. And we have some biblical stuff to back it up. This whole idea of coming to the table, and that's coming up. We may have to do another chat just to get through it. We won't be here very long, but if you want to get that started, Glenn, if you don't mind, that'd be helpful. But this is extremely important. So, how does it benefit relationships? Well, I think anytime that you're dialoguing with the person you're in a relationship with, and you're bringing things up instead of stuffing, instead of hiding, instead of growing resentment, and then they get a laundry list of all the things that you've done to upset them. It's only beneficial, from my perspective. It's only beneficial for relationships moving forward. I don't see any negatives to it. I don't see any bad sides to it. It's just all positive in my estimation. What do you think, Jen?
Yeah, I'd agree. I love what your mom used to say, getting more information. I think there's a plethora of information to be gained
Yeah.
by coming to the table, not only of the other person, but
Mhm.
yourself, and even where the relationship is. I put in the chat one of my other answers is when you bring things to the table and work through them, or if it's worked through,
Yeah.
it's an amazing thing how it bonds you with
Yeah.
the other person. You grow
Oh yeah.
together.
Hmm.
There's more of a foundation built,
Yeah.
of getting to know each other, how the other person ticks, what their expectations are, the safety, all the stuff
Right.
that's entailed.
Right.
What was the other part of the question?
Why is okay? How does it benefit relationships? Is the last part.
Okay, I think that was the one I answered. So what
Why
was
is
the?
bringing it to the table a good idea? Why is it a good idea?
Yeah. Well, I guess my answer incorporated that. it bonds you together. It gives you more information about yourself and the other person.
Okay,
And
hold your
it's great
thought. Sorry to
practice.
interrupt.
Okay.
Hold your thought. So we're gonna change chats, and then we're gonna finish up. We won't be here long, guys. Probably till 10:30. Another 15 minutes or so. So we'll be right.
All right.
All right.
Gotten faster. Quick draw.
Quick draw McGraw.
5, 5, we just got to link it up.
Okay, just let me know when to go, please.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think Nick thought we were ending. Okay.
I
Janice,
think we're ready.
you're back.
I think we're
Oh,
ready to
cool.
go.
Sweet.
Okay, sorry about that, Jen. Go ahead and finish your thought, and then we'll ask Glenn what his thoughts are on this one. You remember what you were saying?
So yeah, I just was like reiterating what I had said on the first, because it's kind of, they're definitely linked.
Yeah, why is bringing it to the table a good idea? I think you were
How does
explaining that a little bit.
benefit relationships. Yeah. So I'm good. Yeah, I
Okay,
answered it
you're
really
good.
well.
All right, Glenn. Why is bringing it to the table a good idea, and how does it benefit relationships?
I think we sort of answered this.
Okay.
So in chat, I said, well, is there actually a relationship if you don't bring stuff to the table?
Mm.
Yeah, it's a great response. I think you mentioned that last week too.
Yeah, it really. I just can't see how it's a functional relationship, and
Yeah.
if it's that same old word, communication, once again.
Yeah.
I mean, the thought of it.
Yeah.
Just in the same room with someone and you don't even communicate or talk. You don't even share what you're thinking. My
Yeah.
goodness, that got to be
it's hell.
debilitating.
As you were saying earlier, that must be hell. That must be hell to be in a relationship, and you're both stuffing. You're not communicating. You're not sharing. You're just existing. You're basically glorified roommates and nothing more. And you call it a marriage, and it's not a marriage. Not by anyone's standards is it a marriage. Even arranged marriages are probably more successful than this type of thing where you just don't share anything. You know, you're just keeping quiet about everything, keeping your feelings and thoughts and emotions to yourself, and then nothing gets worked out. Nothing grows. It's a stagnant place to be in my opinion.
Well, why do people put up with it?
I think that's a great question. I think that they don't know how to do it. I think they haven't been taught, and they don't know how to do it, and they're afraid. As you said earlier, I think it's fear. It's fear
Yeah.
of, what if I bring things to the table? Even if they don't know what a table is, if they just look at it in terms of, what if I share what I'm feeling with my spouse? And what if they reject me? What if they leave me? What if they don't love me anymore? I mean, those are three things just right off the top of my head that I can mention that someone might be afraid of.
Yeah.
So fear is as you know, fear is a strong emotion that it's a great motivator to keep people from doing things and to get people to do things. Fear motivates all kinds of people in different ways, and so it can be huge in a relationship for sure.
Well, that was
I was
certainly
gonna-
that was sorry, Jen. I was just going to say that was certainly me. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I was chicken hearted because I thought if I say this, what I'm really thinking, it's going to make it worse. So what did I do? Shut up.
Yeah.
And then went and put my head in
Yeah.
a bucket.
You and me both, Glenn. And you know, it doesn't sound like your childhood was like this, Glenn, but I was kind of taught like with the disconnect and the not bringing it to the table, to me, it was normal.
Yeah.
And so it kind of played into how I was brought up. So I never had anybody come alongside me and say, this is not healthy. This is not normal. This is
Right.
it's emotional neglect. It's
Right.
disconnection. It's not a marriage. This is not okay.
Right.
And no one ever taught me to understand that I had the right to say this is not okay for me because
Right.
I was dying inside. I just there's no other way to explain it.
Yeah.
Because I'm such a thinker and I love people and I
Mhm.
love to love and I have so much to give and I just was trying to give to this person that wasn't receiving and wasn't giving and didn't want to talk and didn't want to connect, didn't want to communicate. I just felt cut off at the knees,
Yeah.
just heart bleeding out every day. It was awful.
Yeah.
So luckily I met these two amazing guys and
Oh,
did this show. And I just finally realized that this is not okay. And I don't have to do this. Like
right.
this is just really not okay.
Yeah.
So
It's not okay.
thank
Jen,
God.
excuse me, did you think it made a difference to your outlook when you said, I'm not doing this anymore? Did that change you?
It did.
Yeah.
It did because up until that point, when you had asked me some really hard questions, I truly always pictured myself on this roller coaster ride, strapped in, locked, no key, no brake, hurtling forward to a future that terrified me.
Wow.
And I felt I had no control, like absolutely none.
Right.
And so some of the questions that you ended up asking me, Glenn, through our chatting and through the show, made me realize that I have a choice. I have a choice to participate in this or to leave,
Right.
to walk away, to or
Right.
and I, that wasn't the first option that I tried. The first option that we had discussed was letting my husband at the time know we
Yeah.
need to get into counseling.
Yep.
The house is on fire and you're sitting in the recliner watching ESPN and you're not even noticing.
Right.
And I'm not okay. We are not okay.
Yeah.
And just laughed in my face. So it was like I needed to get the information from him if he was
Yep.
willing to notice that the house is on fire and
Yep.
to make a decision on his part
Hmm.
if he wanted to work toward us getting okay because we weren't
Right.
okay, and
Right.
he refused.
Yep.
And so then the ball was back in my court to where I said, okay, I tried.
Yeah.
This is just, it's been so repetitive. And now I need to make a decision for me.
Yeah.
I can't control him and I can only control what I do, what
Right.
myself.
True.
So,
So Jen, quickly, what would okay have looked like in your mind at that point?
Great question. My gosh.
you mean at that point where I asked about counseling?
Hmm.
Well, where you would say, okay, look, basically, I'm coming to the end of the road, but I got the impression that you meant that you weren't at the end of the road quite yet. And if something had been done differently, there might have been a level of okay that had come to you and you would have made a decision to continue in that relationship. So I'm asking you what needs, from your
Interesting.
point of view, to be okay for you to have stayed.
To have moved forward. Yeah.
Well,
It
now we're going to 10.
it definitely would have been seeing action on his part, not just words, because he was very good at
That is.
telling me everything that I wanted to hear to get me to stay longer. Because back in 2015, I was ready to go, and he did that. He told me everything that I wanted to hear. He knew me really well, even though we weren't connected. He studied me,
Uh-huh.
But so him telling me what I guess what I wanted to hear, but it being something that he genuinely wanted for us and for himself as well, and followed it through with action. Because the normal system that he had was to tell me what I wanted to hear, and within a week or two, it was back to the way things were. Back to the rages and the cussing out God, and just on and on and on. So it would have had to been backed up by actual action.
Wow.
Like, because when I anytime I suggested church or going to counseling, like I was the one always doing the legwork to try to make it happen, and then he would make excuses to back out, or he would pick a fight, and we'd get into this huge blow up fight, and we wouldn't go see family, or wouldn't go to church, or we would, it was just always sabotaged. So that would have been a big deal for me to stay, for him to really hear me and really see me, because he wasn't. We were coming to the table, and he'd be throwing dog bones my way, like platitudes, uh like almost like, here, I'm giving you what you want, to shut up. I just don't want to listen to you. Shut the hell up.
Right.
That's how I was taking it, at least, and that's what the pattern was, throughout the marriage.
Yeah.
um so action backing up the words would have been a big deal for me.
Yeah.
So,
And
Jen,
and
quickly. Oh, sorry.
yeah, I was
I
going
don't
to
want
say,
to cut in.
even the words that he was saying to me weren't backing up any, him actually wanting, even him acknowledging that there was anything wrong. He wouldn't even do that. It just was insane. I was like, what? But go ahead and ask your question, Glenn.
Did you and your ex-husband actually have a table?
That's a great question. I don't think so. Um, you know what? It kind of reminds me of a table that goes halfway and there's a wall.
Oh.
Or it's like half a table, and how there's a table that has two leaves, and the leaf on his side is turned up facing me.
Mm.
It's just like,
Wow.
um it got to the point he reacted so viscerally to me sharing feelings or crying or trying to approach him to talk and get to know him better. Even getting to know him better, it was met with such resistance that
Yeah.
I couldn't even go to the table. I was too afraid to even approach the table.
Right.
So the time that before I left, it was very, very scary and very difficult for me to even try to have there be a table for us to come to. It's just like so scary.
Wow.
Uh, does that answer your question?
Yeah, Jen, I think those are brilliant answers. I think I thought it was really important for the people to hear that, because I think it's so relevant to many of us.
Yeah.
So yes, that was
Yeah.
really great. So thanks.
Thanks for the questions, Glenn.
Yeah.
Not surprised.
Yeah, it's great stuff. I'll just add briefly, at the time the suggestion was to, before just leaving, because you were in a place where you would have heard from believers who always are quick to point out that God hates divorce, and they don't read into it anymore. They just make blanket statements. God hates divorce. And unfortunately, people in the church, and I'm doing quotations no one can see, in the church, um, are very down about divorce. And in fact, there are some churches that won't allow a divorced person to congregate with them, for that reason. And I'm not making that up. I've talked to people where that has been the case. Not all churches, but there are ones out there that do that. So there's a lot of stigma involved. And so part of the suggestion was, before just leaving, in that particular situation, was to go to him and say, our marriage is on fire, just like you said, and invite him to counseling, because that would have been the only way, in my opinion, from the outside, the only way that there would have ever been any changes,
And any chance of
any
it
chance,
surviving.
right, would have been if he would have agreed to go to counseling. Of course, when you brought it to him, and you've told the story before, he called it hogwash and said, "I'll fix our problems in a
5 minutes.
Tell
Yeah.
me what's wrong." And then you told him, and he says, "All right, we do this, and they're done." This is the most ridiculous conversation I've ever heard in my life. It's ridiculous.
It's very dismissive.
Yeah, it's very dismissive, and you got the answer you needed, and then the comment the next day, which you've shared before, you just had more confirmation,
Yeah. Multiple.
left and right, that was the best decision. And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, honestly. At the end of the day, you know that you made the right decision, and you got out of that abusive situation. And people can not like it all they want, and they can say whatever they want. It's a decision that you made for you, and God helped you. I believe God helped you make that decision.
He really did. And
Yeah.
I've always been one to really over care about what other people think.
Sure.
And I don't know how it happened, but I had such a resolute place that I was standing in when I left. Like I had talked to a friend. She was a customer of mine with my antique shop at the time, and she
Mhm.
was a family lawyer. And I actually recorded our conversation just to get, to write, to remember the information she gave me in
Right.
regards to filing for a divorce and stuff. And
Mhm.
so she asked me why I was leaving him. And she was, she still shopped at her store and he was running it. I wasn't there anymore. So I didn't want to share everything. And so I kept it very, clipped. And she said to me, she was like, well, from a Christian standpoint, you have no basis for divorce. And I said, well, we're going to have to agree to disagree. And it came out of my mouth. I was like, respectfully, I disagree. That was what I said. And it came so quick out of my mouth. I was like, where'd that come from?
Wow.
So that was just a huge,
Yeah.
huge miracle in itself to just be like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
doing this and it's where we're going.
Wow. Well, I, for one, am glad that you're free of that. And as I've said several times, even if you and I hadn't ended up together, I wanted you to be free. And also, I'll just say, and I've said this before, Glenn and I didn't think that you'd leave as quick as you did. We had a conversation in Messenger at that time, and I don't remember if I asked him or he asked me or who asked who, but we were just like, what do you think's going to happen? And I think we both agreed, and we were both wrong at the time, that it would probably take you a long time to get to the point where you actually left. But
Yeah.
you proved everyone wrong,
Mhm.
and gratefully so. When you were done, you were done. And when
Yeah.
you prayed that prayer and said, I need you to end my marriage, and the next day it was pretty well
Confirmation.
over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. Okay. We're almost done, guys. Appreciate you hanging in there. I know usually we run till 10 o'clock, and we're not going to do that tonight because we're almost done. So this is an important part to add to this. For those of you that believe the Bible, and for those of you that have a relationship with God, this is an important part of this whole conversation, because it actually, I did some research about this, biblically speaking, and I could have put in at least 15 verses to back up this idea of coming to the table straight from Scripture. So the verses are there. If you want to do a personal study on your own, there's several ways to do that. You just type in, relationships and talking about things. And this is probably familiar to a lot of you, what I'm about to discuss. So, in discussing this topic with Jen, she brought up a verse from Scripture that highlights the importance, at least biblically, of not leaving things unresolved with brothers and sisters in a spiritual family. Matthew 5:23 reads, therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. And there are well over 15 other verses in Scripture that bear out this theme of working things out with others and not holding anger in your heart toward them. Also, there's a quote, don't let the sun go down in your anger. This works great in marriages, especially. And the idea in common terms is do not go to bed angry. However you might interpret it, I think we can all agree upon the value of bringing things up and when they happen, and not letting too much time go by before bringing it to the table and working it out. So, if you long to live an authentic life, the idea of coming to the table is a very important topic. Just this week, Jen and I were discussing the idea that there are three entities in every relationship: you, the other person, and the relationship itself. So, what do you think about this idea? Is the relationship you have with another person a third entity? If this is true, in my opinion, that third entity is just as important as each singular one and must be protected. So, this is the last question, guys. What do you think about that, Glenn? About this idea of it being you, the person you're in a relationship with, and the relationship itself being a third entity? Any thoughts on that?
Don't think so.
No
No.
thoughts.
No, I don't think so. I think it's just a relationship is just an interface between two people. I don't see that it has a life of its own in the sense that's being suggested here. But it's a question that requires a deal of thought, I think. So
Okay.
that's my initial gut reaction to the question.
Fair
Um,
enough.
Yeah.
What about you, Jen?
I'm still kind of mulling this one over, but what it makes me think of is like, when the Bible talks about husbands and wives coming together and that they're
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
So there's still, in my belief, I still think I'm my own individual person and
Sure you are.
Jason's his own individual person, but
Yeah.
there is a oneness within the marriage.
Right.
Um, and I think when it comes to relationships, I think if there is an openness and an authenticity, it can be a one. There could be a oneness there,
Hmm.
but I think it's a little more difficult to be that way just because of how different people are, and maybe not no not based on how different people are, but there's just different. Gosh, how do I explain this? Hmm.
Take your time.
Do the Jeopardy song. I was kidding. Um, Sometimes one person could be more invested
Sure.
in the relationship than the other person, so it kind of throws off that oneness.
Right.
My past marriage being a perfect example. I was all in, and I was giving everything
Right.
of myself and
Hmm.
more than I should have, trying to
Right.
make up, I guess, for the lack that was coming.
Sure.
But there was definitely not a oneness there.
No.
And I'm not sure if that's where you were going with this question, but
That's okay. You can
that's my
answer.
answer.
Yeah, you can answer whatever way you want. So originally, when I did the write up, I talked more about this idea, but there wasn't room for it, so I cut a lot of it. So when this came up, I'll just fill it out a little bit. So, Jen, you brought up, biblically speaking, the idea of two people coming together and becoming one. In fact, the verse goes on to say that a man will leave his father and mother and cling to his wife, and the same with her. They cling together, they become, biblically speaking, one flesh. So this concept of the marriage being a third entity is also bared out in the world. A marriage itself is an institution. I mean, that's why divorce has to happen. If it didn't exist like this, you could just say, I'm leaving, and that's it. There wouldn't be any need to do divorce and to separate children and to divide up properties and all that.
Yeah.
But these things are out there because you're when you join yourself to someone, people look at you as a marriage. Of course, you're your own person. In my opinion, even biblically speaking, it's not saying that you're not your own person. It's just saying when you come together, that marriage that you have, you're the same person. And that, I believe, and this is just my interpretation, I believe that's because that's the way God looks at it, as that you should be so close that you're like the same person. Your wants, your needs, your desires should be shared with one another. And unfortunately, sometimes that's not the way it happens. Like Jen was saying, you're saying one person's invested more than the other, and that makes it kind of wonky. But yeah, as Glenn said, this requires more thoughts. I'm not saying that I have a full answer on this. I threw it out there because I thought it was interesting about the relationship, it being each person as individuals, and then the relationship itself as being a third person. And as I said in the write up, if that's true, the third entity is just as important as each singular person in the relationship is, and it must be protected. So in a marriage situation, obviously the marriage should be protected. So if each person is indeed an individual and they're open and authentic, then there shouldn't be any worry about whether the third entity or the marriage is in danger. And I'm not even saying you have to be married. I mean, I would prefer that, obviously, but in any relationship that two people have, if you're coming to the table and being authentic, then the relationship can be important to you, and that it's just there's an importance attached to that. Um, so that's all I'll say about that. It's just something to think about. You guys can think about it and comment if you want, and put it in the description or not, whatever. Um, there it is. So, lastly, the idea of coming to the table could be a game changer in any relationship. Hopefully, we have highlighted some of the aspects and values of this noble idea and opened up a few questions in your own minds. We leave it to you to decide. There we go. And that's it for tonight's write up. And this has been a great one. So we appreciate everyone that has come to be part of the chat. And if you're listening to the playback, thank you. Thank you for stopping by and listening. We appreciate you just as much. Of course, we would like to have everyone that listens come and be a part of the chat because of the great conversations that happen in there. But you know, we all do what we need to do for sure, and we appreciate you anyway. So if you haven't already, please like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. And if you get enjoyment from this broadcast, please just tell someone about it. Tell someone about our little broadcast over here, and give them the link. And you know, we would love to have more people come and have the conversations with us, and that's the purpose of that. All right. So each of us will say goodnight, and then we'll put an end to it for this evening. We'll start with you, Glenn. Glenn, if you wanna say anything to wrap up any thoughts you might have, and then say goodnight to everyone.
I think you covered it well, Crips. Yeah, it's great to see everyone here, and look forward to seeing you next week. And good night.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn. What about you, Jen? Say goodbye to the peoples.
I don't know if y'all keep hearing me yawning. I feel like I like try not to yawn too loud. Have a great night, guys. This was an awesome part two to this particular topic. Very fascinating and intriguing. And I'm just so grateful that we're among like minds that love to learn and grow and see other people's perspective. A safe table here for
Mhm.
people to agree to disagree, and that it's okay. And we're not
Yeah.
getting all up in arms with each other and trying
No,
to
no, no.
change other people's opinions and ideas. It's just, it's all in good fun and
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
And it's great to see you guys, as always.
Thank you, Jen. And we'll say hello to John, who popped in, and also to Annette, who popped in a little bit late. We're glad you guys came. And Annie put in the chat if who's got suggestions for topics, can you put them in the comments, please, and thank yous. Yeah, we're always open to topics, and we would follow up on anything anybody wanted us to talk about. So definitely take any suggestion. You put them in the description if you'd like, whatever you want to do. So thank you for that. We did show up on Tuesday in our Discord for a chat, and we waited around for a while, and no one came, and that's totally fine. So we'll do the same thing again this week. We'll be there at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll wait until 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if no one comes in, then we'll call it a night. So if you come after 9, you can just know that we will not be there. If you know that you're going to come and you want to talk with us, if you just pop it in Discord and let us know that you'll be there after 9 o'clock and you would like us to hang around, we're certainly willing to do that. So just pop that in there, and I'll put the link in the chat for the Discord, and there it is. That's for Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, that's it for us, guys. This has been TSL Come to the Table Part 2. Thank you again for listening. We'll be back again next Sunday. It looks like for the next couple of weeks, Jen and I will be doing the write-ups to give Glenn a needed break with his work gearing up, and he's also working on his house and stuff. And so we definitely want to give him as much break as he needs, and it gives us a chance to present things from our perspective, which is always good. And I've enjoyed this write up that we've put together, and Jen was definitely a part of it as well. It was, I did the main parts, and Jen had some really, really great questions to it, and that's the way we like to do things. So we'll be doing that moving forward. So John put in the chat topic: overcoming addiction, 12 and 12 discussion, maintaining long-term relationships. That's
What's
great.
12 and 12
I
discussion?
don't know what that is. 12 and 12. I don't know what that is.
Huh.
Sorry,
Let
sorry,
us know, John.
sorry, John.
Enlighten us.
Let us know what 12 and 12 is. I understand the first part, overcoming addictions, and I know a little something about that. Certainly in my psychology background, I had to take a class on that, or I took about every psychology class that you can imagine as part of that course study, and that was one. I even thought about being an addictions counselor at one point. I think I've settled on if I was going to get my master's, it would be probably marriage and family would be the main. That's what my mom did. She did marriage and family, which is interesting since she didn't have a marriage that she stayed with, but she seemed to know a lot about it and was able to help people that were struggling with their marriages. And so I guess that's the way it is sometimes. Sometimes you learn enough from a bad marriage to be able to help others not have one. I think that's totally true. All right, there we go. Thank you guys. That's it for us. Hope everyone has a good week. See anyone that wants to come on Tuesday. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next Sunday night. Until then.